The Tampa Bay Buccaneers lose to the Cincinnati Bengals 34-23 in what was, stop me if you've heard this before, a very embarrassing loss for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I was a lot more frustrated when I was recording this video the first time, and then I got interrupted by that Chandler Jones final play against the Patriots. I had to get a video out for that. That's why this video is coming out a little bit later. I won't lie. Feel a little bit better about making this video after seeing the Patriots lose like that. I think Kyle, my dear friend Kyle, who I host the podcast with, I think he's probably going through it a little bit harder than I am right now, so maybe I shouldn't complain so much. But still, this was a very frustrating loss, and I told myself heading into this game that I'm not going to get frustrated by it, right? I did the whole, we're playing with house money here. Playing against a team that many people are picking to win the Super Bowl at this point. At least people are picking them as a Super Bowl contender. Everyone pretty much thinks they're a Super Bowl contender. We're a team that's definitely not on that caliber. So, worst we can do is get blown out, and then we get blown out by a team that's better than us. That's kind of what you expect to happen. But there's the opportunity to shock the world and get a victory, or at least play them tough. That's kind of the thought right here. So I said, okay, not getting frustrated. Then that first half happens, which, I think it's fair to say the Bengals fell asleep at the wheel a little bit. They didn't play their best football. It wasn't just the Buccaneers looked dominant, but it still just goes to show, man, this team does have potential. I don't know what that potential is, but when you're doing all this motion stuff, when you're running play actions, and when Brady is on, this team still looks like a very good football team. We saw Mike Evans finally kind of have that good connection. He still ended up with a pretty good day with 83 yards, but, it wasn't like his most dominant day. It felt like it was going to be a lot more when this game started. There's actually a question mark as to if he's going to get his 1,000 yards this year. We know how that's been a streak for a while. But even with that, you're feeling great after the first half, and then the second half happens. And the reality is there's several ways we could go about this, several angles we can talk about. I saw some people blaming the coaching. I saw some people blaming the defense. But to me, the guy you got to blame is the guy who's turning the ball over. And on 5 straight possessions, they end with there's 3 fumbles and 2 interceptions. 2 of those fumbles were on Brady. And in fact, there was that 4th down play where it looked like Giovanni Bernard was not expecting there to be I don't know what happened there, but it was a fake punt that went terrible. It ended up being a fumble, but okay, kind of a weird play. I don't hate the idea. I actually like the idea of going for a fake punt. In this spot, just didn't work out. Fine. Okay. But then, the following 4 drives, you have 2 Brady interceptions and 2 Brady fumbles, and, a couple of those were on 3rd downs, but the other 2 were on 1st downs. So these were tough turnovers, and the reality is that's a big deal in this football game. Not being able to get that happening, those kind of situations happening, is a big reason why I think the Buccaneers, obviously, it's the reason why the Buccaneers lost. And, having that kind of stuff happen, there's very few games you're going to win. You're certainly not going to win against a team like the Bengals in that spot, and that's how you can still give up 34 points despite the fact they only gave up 3 in the first half, is because of stuff like that. So there's, I think, a couple angles you could take with this one. I do think you could sit here and be optimistic about it. I think you could legitimately argue that this is an optimistic game for Tampa Bay. It's an optimistic game because they showed what they can do, and you didn't expect them to beat the Bengals anyway, but the only reason that the Bengals won this game is because you kept turning the ball over, and if you don't do that, then maybe you win. Now, I have to say, Bengals offense came alive in the second half, which you figured it would. You figured you weren't going to shut them down all game. The Bengals are incredible, and I actually thought Carlton Davis did a pretty good job with Jamar Chase. Holding Jamar Chase to 60 yards in a game when he did have a hard task. He was, on him one-on-one for a good chunk of this game. I thought that he played well in this one. I thought that as a whole, I don't really blame the defense that much. Again, I know 34 points, but I feel like I've been saying this all year where the defense constantly gets put in tough situations, and when they don't always come through, then people blame the defense, but the offense has to not keep giving them the ball in their own territory. That's a tough spot for a defense to try to come through in, especially when it's like the offense isn't getting these long drives in the second half either, so it makes sense the defense is going to get tired. Any defense would get tired in that situation. So, that's kind of my thoughts on that stuff. But the reality is, we do have to blame Brady in this game. That's just what we have to do, because if you turn the ball over 4 straight times, that's not going to go very well. You're probably not going to win that football game if you do that. And this is now a few games where Brady has struggled. Listen, part of what my take was going to be when the Buccaneers were up and it was looking like we were going to dominate was, hey, you know what the biggest difference is between this game and previous games? Tom Brady looks like Tom Brady. My dad even texted me saying, hey, this quarterback for the Bucs looks like he's playing like Tom Brady or something. Because that's kind of what it felt like. Oh, Brady's back. This is great. We're rolling again. This is the ideal scenario. This is what's going well for us. And he was. He was great. But then it's like these turnovers happen. And again, I'm not saying it's all on Brady, but it's like we need Brady to play elite. That's what the Buccaneers need for them to have a chance in a game like the Bengals. And if Brady's not going to play elite and he's going to turn the ball over 4 straight times, we are going to lose. So is it a great scenario to need a quarterback to play elite to win football games? No. It's why the Bucs aren't a very good team. It's why I can keep reusing thumbnails saying that they're just bad because they aren't a great football team. But still, you do have to think that, that's a bit of a, that you would like to see Brady play better, I think. But again, they just beat themselves. For me personally, I don't come away with this thinking, oh, well, hey, look, we can beat the Bengals. I guess I do a little, but part of my take in this game, I think absolutely, is that this is the team that continues to beat themselves, and that's what bad football teams do. Championship caliber teams, yes, occasionally do it, but bad teams consistently beat themselves, and that's not something that's necessarily always going to revert back to the mean. There are examples of teams losing in that scenario, and I think about the turnovers and stuff like that. Sure, but even like smaller stuff, like Rachaad White turning the wrong way on a check down that could have made it a 3rd down and short, instead making it a 3rd down and long. Then they get all but 1 yard. It's 4th down and 1. But because Todd Bowles all of a sudden decides now that we're down, we don't go for it on 4th down. We go for it on 4th down when we're up. But then when we're down, time to punt. They punt the ball and don't get it back until the very end of the game, which was it was a mistake. Again, I know it worked against the Saints. Doesn't mean it was the right call there. It just worked out. It was a dumb call then. It's a dumb call now. This time it did not work out. Give yourself a chance. There were some positives in this game. Like, again, Mike Evans coming back seems good. That Chris Godwin had a good game with the exception of that one dumb blindside block, which was a penalty. I don't know what he was thinking there. And as a whole, I thought that listen, people were complaining about the Levante David hold. I thought it was a hold, to be honest. I did. And besides, should have been pass interference on the previous play, so we can't really complain. We got away with a face mask on Carlton Davis after the game was out of reach, but I thought Leonard Fournette actually played well. People were getting on him for the fumble, but it wasn't his fault. Brady threw the ball right at his chest. Like, what are you supposed to do there? It just slipped out of Brady's hands. Russell Gage had a couple tough plays, but also had a couple touchdowns. So, there were some positives in this game. I feel like the offensive line as a whole played well in this one, for sure. But at the end of the day, there's just too many negatives going on, and they just keep beating themselves. And until they show me that they show me that they're not going to continue to beat themselves, there's definitely some issues. But yeah, again, Carlton Davis, I thought, played very well against Jamar Chase. So I'll give him some credit. But again, I tend to turn these videos into like these Buccaneers fan review type things. Bengals are very good. Bengals didn't play their best game, and they still won by 11. That's how good they are. Bengals are they have things they need to work on. But again, losing to the Bengals, there's no shame in it. The shame is in how they lost to the Bengals. Got to figure some stuff out. But I don't know. I had no issue with the coaching. I actually thought Todd Bowles did a good job in the first half. Like, I was really impressed with their coaching in the first half. Some nitpicks in the second half, but I don't know. It's on the players for me. That's what I think. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below. Always love hearing from you. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.